New NSPIRE inspection standards. My name is Dallas Ontiveros. I am the Housing Information Officer with the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. And also, before we begin, I would like to make a few announcements when it comes to the housekeeping for this Zoom. Today's informational meeting is being recorded and it will be made available on the HPHA's website next week at hpha.hawaii.gov. Microphones will also be muted for the duration of the presentation, but if you have any questions about NSPIRE through the Zoom, you may enter them into the meeting chat at any time. Now, where to find that is if you look at the bottom of the screen, you will see the chat button. After clicking on the chat button, the chat box should appear, and in that chat box, type in your question and send, so at the end of the presentation, we will repeat that question and answer the questions that you may have. We will go through each question in the order they are received. Now, I would like to introduce you all to John Villegas, who is the HPHA inspector and also our main presenter. We also have John Swift, who is an HPHA inspector. We have Lyle Matsuura, who is a Section 8 supervisor, and Adam Kwan, who is also Section 8 supervisor. Take it away, gentlemen.
Okay, to start, I would like to provide some background information on the current inspection standards used in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, also known as Section 8. For over 20 years, public housing agencies have used the Housing Quality Standards, or HQS, when inspecting dwelling units before and during a tenant's occupancy. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, created the HQS inspection standards as a way for public housing agencies to determine whether a dwelling unit can be considered habitable for a family receiving assistance. All dwelling units enrolled in the program must meet all HQS requirements to be declared decent, safe, and sanitary. In 2018, Congress directed HUD to create a new set of inspection standards that would be used across all HUD programs. In May 2023, HUD published a final rule which required all public housing agencies to begin implementation of the national standards for the physical inspection of real estate, or NSPIRE, as a replacement to HQS. All public housing agencies are required to implement NSPIRE by HUD's deadline of October 1st, 2024. Please be aware that public housing agencies were allowed discretion over when to implement the NSPIRE inspection standards. For example, the City and County of Honolulu's Section 8 program is implementing NSPIRE at an earlier date on July 1st, 2024. Units that are rented to tenants with a Section 8 voucher issued by HPHA will be inspected using the NSPIRE standards starting October 1st, 2024. Part of why Congress directed HUD to create NSPIRE was it felt HQS did not do enough to protect the health and safety of Section 8 residents. NSPIRE inspection standards place a greater emphasis on the conditions within a resident's dwelling unit. Compared to HQS, NSPIRE also places less emphasis on appearance defects as well as the areas outside of a dwelling unit. Although the inspection standards are changing, most of the inspection process will remain the same. After NSPIRE gets implemented in October, you can still expect our staff to perform inspections before move-in and on an annual basis thereafter. We will also continue performing special inspections whenever defects are reported to us. Under NSPIRE, our inspectors will check for most of the same deficiencies that would be cited under HQS. We will still check the safety of various fixtures, wiring, plumbing, etc. within the unit. Inspection results are also not changing. All units will be given either a pass or fail at the end of an inspection, depending on what an inspector finds. Also, any deficiencies that are life-threatening and could cause serious harm to a family will still require repair within a 24-hour window. Finally, the change in inspection standards does not change any other condition of an owner's HAP contract. It also does not change any obligations a family may have under their lease or voucher agreement. Now let's take a closer look at how NSPIRE differs from HQS. HQS inspections are organized into 8 sections, which address 13 different aspects of habitability inside and outside the unit. As mentioned earlier, NSPIRE carries over many of the same requirements of HQS, but tries to streamline the overall inspection process. Under NSPIRE, HPHA inspectors will look at 3 distinct inspectable areas. These are 1, the interior of the dwelling unit, 2, the inside of the building, which are common areas, hallways, or any other shared spaces, and 3, the outside of the building. Under NSPIRE, public housing agencies are no longer required to inspect the surrounding area for certain environmental and neighborhood conditions. HUD recognized that under HQS, certain conditions that were completely out of an owner's control would result in a failed inspection. However, NSPIRE still requires us to inspect the exterior of a building for anything that could directly impact the health and safety of a tenant, like tripping hazards or failures in the structural integrity of a building. There are 63 different standards under NSPIRE. Each standard can be applied to 1, 2, or 3 of the inspectable areas. For example, the address and signage standard only applies to the outside of the building. The infestation standard applies to the unit, inside of the building and outside of the building, and the sink standard only applies to sinks in the unit and common areas of the building. Each standard is made up of a list of deficiencies that an inspector will look for during an inspection and where they might occur. For example, under NSPIRE, there is an inspection standard for water leaks. There are 3 different deficiencies which could occur under this standard. Deficiency 1, environmental water intrusion, could occur either in the dwelling unit or inside of the building. Deficiencies 2 and 3 could potentially occur in all 3 inspectable areas. You may also have noticed that the deficiencies are color-coded. This is because under NSPIRE, HUD has assigned each deficiency with a health and safety determination. The same deficiency may have different health and safety determination depending on where it is found. Generally, a deficiency that is found in the dwelling unit will have a more serious health and safety determination compared to the same deficiency found in any common areas or outside the building. Starting with life-threatening deficiencies, these are deficiencies which pose a high risk of death or severe illness or injury to a family. An example of a life-threatening deficiency would be a gas dryer exhaust ventilation system that is blocked or has restricted airflow. These kinds of deficiencies require correction by an owner within 24 hours and will result in a failed inspection. NSPIRE creates a new health and safety determination for severe deficiencies. These are deficiencies that present a high risk of permanent disability, serious injury, illness to a resident, or would seriously compromise the physical security or safety of a resident or their property. An example of a severe deficiency would be if a call for aid system which may be needed by the resident is blocked or higher than 6 inches off the floor. These kinds of deficiencies now require correction by an owner within 30 calendar days and will result in a failed inspection. Moderate deficiencies are deficiencies that present a moderate risk of an adverse medical event, could cause temporary harm, could worsen a chronic condition, or compromise the physical security or safety of a resident or their property. An example of a moderate deficiency would be a plumbing leak that allows water intrusion into unintended areas. Although the level of risk is not as serious as severe deficiencies, moderate deficiencies are still treated the same as severe deficiencies. They must be corrected by an owner within 30 calendar days and will result in a failed inspection. Finally, some deficiencies can be categorized as low-risk deficiencies. These are deficiencies that affect habitability, but do not present an immediate and substantive health or safety risk to a family. An example of a low-risk deficiency would be the presence of mold in a room that is altogether less than 4 square inches. Low-risk deficiencies do not have a correction period. A dwelling unit with a low-risk deficiency but no life-threatening, severe, or moderate deficiencies can pass an inspection. Now let's take a closer look at some examples of how the NSPIRE standards are organized. Please be aware that we are not listing all of the possible deficiencies under each standard. If you would like to review all possible deficiencies under each standard, please visit HUD's NSPIRE webpage. We are providing a link to this webpage at the end of the PowerPoint. First, we have the standard for mold-like substances. As you can see from this table, this standard applies to the dwelling unit and to any common areas inside the building the unit is located in. Here we see 3 possible deficiencies and where these deficiencies could occur. We can also tell that the presence of mold in the dwelling unit is of more concerning than the presence of mold in any common areas or hallways. Under each possible deficiency, there are criteria that an inspector will check for in order to determine whether a deficiency actually exists. When inspecting a dwelling unit, an inspector will look for mold and observe the cumulative area of any mold found in each room. If mold is more than 4 square inches, but less than 1 square foot, it will be cited as a moderate deficiency under deficiency number 1. The owner would be required to correct the deficiency within 30 calendar days and the unit fails inspection. If the mold is more than 1 square foot but less than 9 square feet, it is a severe deficiency under the criteria for deficiency number 2. The owner would be required to correct the deficiency within 30 calendar days and the unit fails inspection. If the mold is more than 9 square feet in size, it meets the criteria for deficiency number 3. It will be cited as a life-threatening deficiency. The unit fails inspection, and the deficiency must be corrected within 24 hours. Now let's take a look at how those same deficiency criteria are applied when inspecting a different area. When the inspector is inspecting the inside of the building, the criteria they will use to determine whether a possible deficiency exists will be the same. However, if a deficiency is found, the result of that finding may not always be the same. It may have a different health and safety determination. In other words, the same deficiency can have a different correction period depending on where it is found. In our example, let's say an inspector found a patch of mold in a common area that is more than 4 square inches, but less than 1 square foot. The cumulative total of the mold in the common area would meet the criteria of deficiency number 1. It will be cited as a low-risk deficiency and not require immediate correction. If there are no other life-threatening, severe, or moderate deficiencies found anywhere else, the inspection will result in a pass. If mold of the same size was found inside of the unit, it would have been a moderate deficiency and require correction within 30 days. The inspection would result in a fail. Here's another standard related to GFCI or AFCI outlets and breakers. Under this standard, there are 3 possible deficiencies that could occur in all 3 inspectable areas. Each deficiency, regardless of where it is found, would be considered a severe deficiency, require correction within 30 calendar days, and result in a failed inspection. There are also sometimes exceptions listed in the deficiency criteria. For example, deficiency number 3 does not apply if the outlet is dedicated to a major appliance, like a water heater, refrigerator, washing machine, dishwasher, etc. If any exceptions exist, they are notated within the full NSPIRE standard. In our next example, we have the standard for infestations. Again, we can see that some deficiencies are considered more serious when they are found in a unit versus in any common areas. Deficiency number 2, extensive cockroach infestation, is considered a severe deficiency if it is found in a unit, but only a moderate deficiency if found in a common area. However, as mentioned before, these two deficiency types are treated exactly the same under NSPIRE. They both require correction within 30 calendar days and will result in a failed inspection. This slide shows the criteria that an inspector will use to determine whether a deficiency exists under the infestation standard. For this standard in particular, there are 9 total deficiencies that could exist and a different set of criteria for each one. In general, NSPIRE establishes stricter requirements around pest and infestation prevention. Any evidence or visual observation of pests will result in a failed inspection. In our final example, we have the standard for guardrails. This standard only has 2 possible deficiencies, but they are applicable to all 3 of the inspection areas. Any deficiencies found are considered life-threatening. Under NSPIRE, guardrails are required along any walking surface that is more than 30 inches above the floor or grade below. If the guardrail is missing in any place where there should be one, it would meet the criteria of deficiency number 1 and is considered a life-threatening deficiency. Similarly, if a guardrail is installed where needed, but it is not functionally adequate, the inspector's finding meets the criteria for deficiency number 2 and is considered a life-threatening deficiency. As mentioned previously, there are 63 total standards, each of which has a list of possible deficiencies that an inspector might find. While we cannot cover every single change in this one presentation, here are some additional changes that you should be aware of. If a unit has any gas, oil, or wood appliances, or if there is an enclosed garage attached to the unit, carbon monoxide detectors must be installed within the immediate vicinity of all sleeping areas. NSPIRE removes many cosmetic deficiencies which do not affect the health and safety of tenants. Once NSPIRE is implemented, inspections will no longer consider conditions like overgrown vegetation, non-security or safety fence damage, scratched countertops, etc. NSPIRE also adds new requirements for dryers and dryer exhausts. Any missing, detached, or damaged vents will be considered a life-threatening deficiency, and the use of any plastic ducts will also be considered a life-threatening deficiency. NSPIRE also changes requirements related to smoke detectors. They now become required both within all bedrooms and outside of each bedroom. Smoke detectors outside of a bedroom must be within 21 feet of the bedroom doorway. Other specifications related to how and where smoke detectors are mounted are not changing. For example, detectors mounted on the ceiling must still be 4 inches away from the wall. Detectors mounted on a wall must still be within 4 to 12 inches from the ceiling. And detectors should not be installed within 36 inches of windows, exterior doors, or ducts where drafts might interfere with their operation. Another important change to be aware of is that starting next year, all smoke detectors must either be hardwired or tamper resistant, meaning they must feature a non-removable lithium-ion battery. And new to the inspection process are standards for call for aid systems. If a call for aid system is needed by a resident, the inspection will also take into account whether it is obstructed, functional, and accessible should a fall occur. We highly recommend that owners and tenants try to get familiar with some of these new standards before they become effective. This page includes a list of various resources which go into much more depth on how NSPIRE inspections are performed and the criteria that will be used to determine whether deficiencies exist.
Mahalo, John. Finally, again, I would like to remind everyone that the NSPIRE inspection standards do not go into effect until October 1st of this year, 2024. Any inspection conducted until then will continue to use the housing quality standards. Any inspection that starts before October 1st, 2024 will be conducted using HQS even if we pass the October 1st implementation date. Again, the recording of this meeting and these slides will be uploaded to the HPHA's website next week, hpha.hawaii.gov. And if any of you all have any questions after today or in the future, please feel free to email us at hpha@hawaii.gov or call our office at phone number 808-204-9042. As mentioned at the start of this presentation about submitting any questions in the chat box, at this time, we will go ahead and answer any questions that you may have through the chat box. We will answer questions that we receive them in order. Let's see if we have any. At this point, we have no questions. There's 199 participants, so if there is any questions that are coming up right now, please insert them into the chat box so we can answer them. Okay. If there
Oh,
are any questions, oh, do we
sorry,
have one?
Dallas. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm not sure why, but it's the chat seems to be defaulting to direct messaging.
Oh, okay.
Let me go through, let me see if I can change that. I think what people have to do is when they open the chat box, there should be a to button.
Mhm.
I don't know, does this show up for you? But I think you can direct it to everyone in the meeting.
Yes, I see the chat box and I have it on everyone, but I just don't see any in here. Okay. All right, I got one right here. All right, here they come.
Okay, there we go. Yeah,
So,
so yeah, if everyone can direct the questions in the chat box to everyone in the meeting,
mhm,
that way we can all see it.
perfect. So I do see one here. It's by Micah Matsumoto. They asked, will the slides be available on our website? Yes, they will at hpha.hawaii.gov sometime next week. So Jeff Bruno says they don't have everyone as an option. If you do not have everyone as an option, you can direct the message to any of the presenters or myself. My name is Dallas. We also have two Johns, John Vegas,
Oh,
John Swift, and
sorry,
Nicholas.
Dallas. I don't mean to interrupt. It doesn't seem like that people can select everyone, which I'm
Okay.
not sure why.
Mm.
Um,
Do we want to take hands then?
yeah, we can do that too. Well, I'll just let people unmute themselves.
Okay.
Um,
So if
does,
there are any questions, we'll just reroute. Go ahead and use one of the reactions to raise your hand. All right, I think I see David here. How's it going, David?
And you know what, Dallas, sorry, for the questions that I've gotten so far, I'll just send them to you, direct message, and you can read them.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good.
I had a question.
All right, let's see. Who had the question?
Me.
Oh, Thomas. All right, go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah, so if I have a wooden table, I would need a carbon monoxide detector.
So the question was about a wooden table and using carbon dioxide. What was the last part? I'm sorry.
I believe earlier the representative said that a carbon monoxide detector would be needed if there's like wood or something on the property. I misunderstand.
So the question was on the use of carbon monoxide on a wooden table, correct?
Yeah, I believe you said something about a carbon monoxide detector that might be
Yeah,
required.
need to be on battery.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question, please.
All right. One moment. We'll
Okay.
answer Thomas Flores's question first, but we'll definitely get to you. But do we have an answer about the carbon monoxide detector?
John or John? John
Sorry,
Swift or
I'm answering a chat question that was directed to me. I'll get to that as soon as I can.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I could answer it. It's
Okay.
what he's talking about, what they're talking about. If you have something that's producing carbon monoxide, like a wood burning stove,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So if you have a wood burning stove, then you gotta put that carbon monoxide detector in there as well,
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
or gas. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Thanks.
Okay. So, Miss, the one with an iPhone, do you want to ask your question next? We'll have you ask to unmute.
Okay, so my question is like, I really don't know who my worker is, and I know I've been working with Mr. Nicholas since I've been here, and I enjoy working with him. But I want to know what happened next. Like, do we renew our voucher? Do we can stay or can we move? Like, I want to be on top of things like that. Cause after today, I know that I'm supposed to make my payment here where I stay at. I'm supposed to remain my portion of my balance. And I just don't want to go and pay my part of my rent, and my rent is not, the rest of it is not being paid or nothing. So I need to know that, like, is we renewing? I mean, what is we doing here besides the inspections and updates?
Hi, so Dallas, ma'am, you can go ahead and call the Section 8 office at 808-832-6040, and we'll direct you to your worker and answer all your questions.
Okay, but I never know my worker. Like, I never know who my worker was, right? And every
Okay.
time I call that number, I don't get no one.
Yeah,
Right.
so
It's like,
okay, you can ask for me. My name is Lyle, and I'll put my name in the chat.
you say your name is Maya. Oh, hey, I think I met you before. Yeah, I met you. Would it be okay if I come by?
Yeah, you can call me. Call me Lyle.
Wow. Okay, can you send me the number in the inbox too as well?
Yes, we'll definitely set that to the chat. Thank you so much for your question. All right, so I'll go ahead and switch things over to the chat room to answer a couple questions sent over here. This question is, what if I live in a one-bedroom and have one smoke detector in the middle of my living room and bedroom? Will I need to have smoke detectors in the living room separate from my bedroom and also kitchen and bathroom? So this question is about the placement of the smoke detector, where it needs to be.
So definitely for the smoke detector, it would need to be in the bedroom. If you have like a hallway, I guess directly outside the bedroom, then you would need another smoke detector out there as well. But if it's just like your living room, well, I'm sorry, you could also actually have the smoke detector right outside in the living room as well. There would just need to be one in the bedroom and then one outside of the sleeping areas.
Okay. We have another question in the chat. This is from Chelsea Tinio. There's a couple questions and also an observation to follow. So they ask, what protocols do you have in place or something to add maybe to protect homeowners from damages caused by tenants? If the inspector is there to inspect the safety of the property, could they also be there to inspect the conditions the tenants are leaving the property?
Hi, Dallas. I'll give like a real generic answer to that. So, Section 8 clients are responsible to comply with everything in the lease agreement. So I would approach it just like how you would a non-Section 8 tenant. If there's any type of damage or violation to the lease, then landlords and property managers should be following up with whatever the repercussion is stated in the lease.
Chelsea does add an observation and she says, we see a few times where we have to go in for repairs and find that the tenants have not upkept the property. We have even seen that they have punch holes in the walls or a kicked in door and the inspector said nothing. I think it would be beneficial for our homeowners' peace of mind to also have the inspector there to ensure the tenants are upkeeping their end of the lease/contract. It would likely open more doors for housing opportunities. Are there comments on the observation?
So if
I don't know.
there
That is
is,
so rude.
yeah. So Dallas, this is Lyle.
Hello?
Hi. So if there's things like that, like people punching holes in the walls or just like intentionally damaging the unit, that would be a violation of the lease and that could potentially jeopardize a person's participation in the program. So I would recommend landlords and property managers to take pictures and to send it to the Section 8 office, and then we'll review it. And of course, the family could, you know, we treat everything as an allegation, right? Just because we see damage, we don't assume that the family caused it, but we would look into it. So I would document everything and just approach it just like you would a non-Section 8 family. If there's damage to the unit, you know, you need to address it through the lease.
Okay. The next question we have in the chat room, again, if you have a questions, we'll definitely get to the raise hands, but it is more efficient if you type it in the chat box. So the next question that we have is, what are the guidelines for ceilings that have asbestos?
Hi, John Swift. Are you able to speak to that question? Okay, I think if you're speaking, you might be muted there.
I'll ask to unmute. Can you hear us, John Swift? Sorry, you're on mute. There
Can
we
you hear me
go.
now?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Mhm.
Every asbestos situation is different, so we would have to address it as we see it.
Okay. All right, I don't see any in the chat box as of right now. Again, if there are any questions, you can always contact us through email at hpha@hawaii.gov. Okay, one moment. I'm gonna get to you in just 1 second. Okay, all right, go ahead and ask your question, Vera.
Okay, the inspections was every 10 months. Will it be the same or will it be 12 every annually?
So the question was on the timeline and the inspection on when it will be taking place. Is that correct?
Right, like it was every 10 months. It's
Okay.
still months, but will it then change to every annually, every 12 months?
John
Because
or
he mentioned 12 months. I mean, he mentioned annually during his speech there. So I was just wondering.
yeah, I mean, the inspectors could speak to this probably better, but I think we have to do it within a 12-month period. So I think the frequency of inspections is not changing. So it should they'll still, I think, reach out at the 10-month mark. But I think under HUD regulations, we're required to do it within the 12-month period, right? Since the last one. So yeah, the frequency of the inspections is not changing.
Okay.
All right, does that answer your question, Vera?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. These are all great questions. I know Oahu Subin, you sent a message through text. Would you like to ask your question for the group, or do you want to email us afterwards? Okay, I believe he's going to email us afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the chat box. We have another question right here. It says, how do we deal with infestation due to the lifestyle of the tenant? They provide an example, leaving food out.
Yeah, I would say that, again, refer to the lease as always. If it's a violation of the lease, then just treat it just like you would a non-Section 8 family. If it, if you take pictures of it and send them a violation and cite the line in the lease of what rule or what policy they're violating, and you can also CC and copy the Section 8 office.
Okay, mahalo, Lyle. We have another question here in the chat box. They say, what kind of batteries need to be used for smoke alarms after January 1st, 2025? So again, this question is about which batteries need to be used for smoke alarms.
For I guess the inspection standards coming up after January 1st, the requirements for the smoke detectors will be that they either be hardwired or that they are tamper resistant, sealed lithium ion batteries. So the battery will be contained within the unit. You can't order like a separate battery for it. It just comes as one unit.
Okay, I'm going to switch things over to the gallery. I saw that Brett had his hand up for a minute. Brett, do you want to answer your question? I mean, do you want to say your question?
I'd like to speak my question if it's okay.
Okay.
He just mentioned that at least one smoke detector needs to be hardwired. I think he means it needs dual power. That means it gets 110 volt AC plus the non-tamper lithium. In the description of the location of smoke detectors, he said there needs to be a smoke detector outside of each bedroom. Most hallways have like a 3-bedroom house. There's 3 bedrooms with doors that are in close proximity to each other. So I would assume that one dual power smoke detector in the hallway would suffice to cover all 3 bedrooms. If you'd like to extrapolate on that.
Yes, so for the smoke detector that's outside of the bedrooms, it just needs to be within 21 feet of, I guess, each of the doorways. So generally in a regular hallway, one smoke detector would be sufficient in the hallway.
Okay, thank you so much, Brett, for your question. For everyone participating so far, these are really great questions. Again, if something does come up later on today or throughout the weekend or before this gets implemented, you can always reach us at hpha@hawaii.gov. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the chat room again. We have a few more questions. I see this says, does NSPIRE only apply to HPHA's Section 8 program?
It will be implemented for our housing choice vouchers and also, I guess, for the project-based vouchers as well. So, I mean, in that sense, yes, for all of Section 8.
And they just added some clarification. They ask, these changes apply to both the city and county and state Section 8 inspection, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All
Okay.
all programs across the country that run a Section 8 program have to do NSPIRE inspections by October 1st or after that deadline.
Following on that, another question on inspections. They ask, if landlords ask for a rent increase, do you do the inspection before approving the rent increase?
No.
Okay. This question is from Amanda Hahn in the chat room. Remember, if you have any questions, you can also enter them here in the chat room. She asked, will there ever be an online portal available to landlords where they can respond to any inspections, such as being able to upload photos and invoices showing that the infractions have been taken care of? Online portals will help speed up the process, and having everything online would be a great way to keep track of everything. So the question is, will there be an online portal available so landlords can respond and interact with inspections?
Currently, the state doesn't have any plan for an online landlord portal regarding inspections, but the landlords and the property managers are welcome to email the HPHA directly, the inspections department directly. That's probably the best route. And if you don't get a response, then you can definitely call and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, mahalo Lyle. We have another question in the chat room. This is from Oahu Subin. They ask, we have a smoke detector in between 2 bedrooms on the outside within 21 feet. They would like to confirm that we still have to have a smoke detector in each bedroom. If we are renting, do we communicate directly with the landlord if changes and additions like smoke alarms in each bedroom need to be addressed? So the question is pretty much asking, what's the communication like with the landlord if there's any changes or additions with smoke alarms in bedrooms?
Okay, so coming up, I guess, as of October 1st, they will need to have smoke detectors in each bedroom. As far as communicating that, it's like, I guess, anything that you would normally communicate with your landlord, you can just, let them know directly. And then if they have any questions, like if they're not familiar with what the new standards will be, then they can always call our office.
Wonderful. And just to clarify for some other questions coming in with you, John, after October 1st, each bedroom has to have a smoke detector.
Yes.
Got it. So we have another question here. It's about the inspection as well. They ask, how do we know if there is going to be an inspection? Is there a lead time on a notification? Will this be sent to the renter or to the landlord?
Notifications on when the inspections will take place are sent out to both the renter and to the landlord. I believe they're sent out at least 2 weeks ahead of time. It might be a longer lead time, but I believe it's at least 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect. So I think we may have answered this question as well, but we'll clarify it if needed. So they ask, if my smoke detector is within 20 feet of my bedroom in my hallway, will I still need a separate smoke detector in the bedroom? So they're describing if they don't have one in their bedroom, but they have one in the hallway, will they need a separate smoke detector as well in their bedroom?
Yes, the new standard will be requiring a smoke detector in each bedroom, as well as one outside of the bedroom and within 21 feet. So in general, again, any hallway would just normally have only one smoke detector outside of the bedrooms.
So after October 1st, they'll need a smoke detector in their bedroom and in their hallway.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So these are all great questions, everyone. Again, if something does come up later throughout the weekend, please email us at hpha@hawaii.gov. They're still coming in right now. Brett, I don't know if you have another question or if you still have your hand raised up, but I see Vera has a follow-up question. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Vera. If you'd like to ask your question, you can unmute yourself, please. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, as far as the smoke detectors, we just have the 9-volt battery, not lithium. Will you guys be actually removing the smoke detector to check it, or?
Sorry, I'm answering a chat question.
John Swift, can you answer that question?
As of right now, I don't know the new laws, the new rules that came out. I'm not sure when how we're gonna be able to check that. We're still new yet, so we're gonna be checking on that.
Is the 9-volt still good, or?
The 9-volt will still be good if they're interwired to each other.
There's no wires. It's just.
Okay, so if there's no wires, then it's not gonna be compliant. It needs to be connected by wires, or it has to be the 10-year lithium-ion battery.
Okay. For my.
Okay, does that answer your question, Vera?
Yes, thank you very much. It's very important. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. Okay, I see a couple hands raised up here. We'll definitely get to you, Thomas and Tiffany, but I'm going to go ahead and move back to the chat room. There's a question that says, regarding new move-in Section 8 inspection, what is a typical time from being assigned to an inspector to the unit being inspected? How do we find out who the inspector will be? So they're asking about the time frame. I think you mentioned it too, John, about the 2-week notice, but is there anything you could elaborate on sort of the assignment to the inspector or to the unit process?
Hi, Dallas. So I'll share.
Okay.
So when a resident submits like a RAFTA or a rent packet to their housing specialist, there's no time frame. We don't know who the inspector will be, but you can follow up with your housing specialist and they will go ahead and look and check to see who that person will be.
Okay, mahalo, Lyle. I'll go ahead and move over to another question in the chat room. This is from Amanda Hahn. They ask, in my experience, the 10-year lithium batteries go bad after 1 to 2 years, 90% of the time. 9-volt battery types are much more reliable. Just confirming that you are saying the smoke/carbon monoxide detectors have to be either hardwired or the 10-year lithium type. If so, why would we not be able to use a standard 9B battery type? Sorry if I missed that, she says. So the question is pretty much asking or confirming that the smoke/carbon monoxide detectors have to be either hardwired or the 10-year lithium type. Which one?
Hey, Nick, is that just something that HUD determined?
Yeah, that's part of the NSPIRE final rule. But yes, I think it does need to be, those are the only two options as far as I understand it, is it has to be hardwired or the 10-year. And that's a HUD requirement.
So it could be either one?
Yeah,
Okay.
it can be. But those are the only two options that I think HUD is leaving the owners with. And I mean, that's correct, right, John or John?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a HUD requirement. It has to be one of those two.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Please keep the questions rolling through the chat room. I'm going to go ahead and move over to our raised hands. To Thomas Flores, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi. So I was wondering, is this smoke detector good right here? You see how can you see it like, or is it not?
It's good for right now. I can't tell if it's going to be actually a hardwired one, but if it's a hardwire with a battery backup, then it should still be good. But if it's just with the 9-volt after, I'm sorry, after January 1st, then it will need to be either the hardwired or the tamper-resistant sealed lithium-ion smoke detector.
Yes,
Thank you, John. Yeah, we could see your green screen is sort of disappearing, your example, but if you have pictures that you want to send, Thomas, feel free to send them at hpha@hawaii.gov and we could give you
I'll
some.
fix that right here. Yeah,
Okay.
apologize. You see, it's I don't know.
Yeah, so by January 1st of next year, you cannot use that kind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has. So I keep getting questions too about like where to get the lithium ion battery. So these newer detectors, they're tamper proof. So the battery is, when you purchase the detector, it's already inside and it's can't be removed. So it's not like you have to buy a separate lithium ion battery to put into the detector. It should already be inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Thomas. I'm going to go to Tiffany now. She had her hand up for a little bit. Tiffany, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, well, of course, thank you, first of all, for all you gentlemen putting this together today. We do appreciate it in the industry that we get to conversate with you and to help disseminate the information as well. My question is related to the hardwiring of smoke detectors as well. I had an experience with a inspector already of the new information coming. We were told that if a unit currently has hardwired smoke detectors, maybe it was built in early 2000s, it's no longer operational, and an owner switched over to a battery type. It could be the lithium type, but we were told by the inspector, if the hardwire is present, if I have a fuse in my circuit breaker box that is for smoke detectors, I'm required to retrofit and correct that system, and I'm not permitted to use the 10-year lithium battery type. Is that true?
So it sounds like the question they're asking is sort of clarification on the communication when it comes to battery use and smoke detectors. Can we clarify anything that she mentioned for us?
So you're saying you already have the hardwired smoke detectors, is that correct?
Sorry, Tiffany, do you have the hardwire smoke detectors already?
Oh, sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute. Okay.
It's okay.
Let's look at this situation. I used to have hardwired smoke detectors. They're still hanging up there, but they no longer function. Do I have to repair that system, or am I allowed to just use the tamper-proof battery type from now on? I was told by an inspector that I had to repair the system and maintain that electrical hardwired with battery backup type. Is that true for this new NSPIRE standards?
So for the NSPIRE standards, you should only need to have one or the other. So if you're not going to repair that hardwired system, I would say you would need to at least remove the hardwired smoke detectors, and then make sure to cover up any wiring or holes from those, and then you can install the tamper-resistant lithium-ion batteries, the lithium-ion smoke detectors, and that should be fine.
Can we have that in writing, please? Is that noted somewhere? Can I have the citation, please?
Well, it's just going to be one or the other. If you have the hardwired system, then that'll be fine. But if you're not going to use that, then you need to remove the smoke detectors. And then since I assume there will be wiring for it, just make sure that the wiring is not visible. If there's holes, just, cover up the holes. And then you can just install the lithium ion smoke detectors, and that should be fine.
But can we have the actual citation of where it is? Because honestly, I did fail for this. I did have to go to a manager. It was not enacted yet, but this is a real world example that did occur here in Hawaii.
Yeah, so
Tiffany, sorry,
yeah,
real quick.
Sorry, go ahead.
When you said it failed for this because the NSPIRE hasn't been active yet, did you fail it recently or?
That's why I got the pass on it by speaking to a manager, because it was not enacted yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We
Nick,
would love that specific citation to assist us in the future.
So I posted it, reposted in the chat, Nick's the NSPIRE standards. Is that one or the other in there, Nick?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that it's probably a deficiency having the wires exposed, even if it's not, there's not a current going to it. I think it's still a deficiency under one of the electrical standards. But to figure out which specific deficiency and standard that it falls under, I would have to take a look. But we can, you can feel free to message me. You know what? Hold on one sec. I'll put my email address in the chat. And
sorry,
then
team,
we can follow up offline to find the specific citation for it. Yeah.
Oh, much appreciated. Thank you, gentlemen.
Sure.
and just following up on Tiffany's question and also another one in the chat, what she mentioned or anything related, was it mentioned at all in the presentation, or where can they revisit this information or kind of be reminded or look at it again if they want to learn more?
So all the standards are in that link. So like John had mentioned, there's 63 total, and under each one of those 63 standards, there are a list of possible deficiencies and where they can occur and what the severity of each deficiency is. It is a little, it is a lot. A lot of it is carried over from HQS. There are some differences. But the link that Lyle had just reposted links to all of the 63 standards and possible deficiencies. And then there are also in the PowerPoint presentation that we had just shown, that'll be posted. There are some resources in those links that you can click they're more summarized versions of, they don't get into as much detail, but they do, do a good job of summarizing a lot of the big changes that are happening. So you're aware of, these new deficiencies that could be found in the unit and what the result would be and how it might affect the inspection result.
All right, thank you so much, Nick. And we also provided his contact information as well as hpha@hawaii.gov if you have any more questions related to this. But this is great engagement. It definitely adds a lot of stimulation and adds to the preparation before October 1st. But I want to go ahead and move over to the chat room again. We had a great question from Gail Archuleta. They ask, what if you are due for inspection before October? This is before the implementation date. How does this work out? How does this all comply?
Oh, I think it was mentioned in the presentation that you'll just be held to the HQS standard, I believe, until after October 1st.
So Gail can just keep following from what she's used to until October
Yeah,
1st.
I mean, yeah, basically is like we can't implement the standard before October 1st. So, you know, she'll be held to the HQS standards prior to that, if her inspection is prior to October 1st.
Okay, great. I have another question here in the chat room. They ask, what if there is mold at the corners of my ceiling that's been there since I moved in? I have popcorn-like ceilings, so it is hard to clean. Will that be my landlord's issue to fix if it doesn't get passed? So the question is about mold on the ceilings. How does that process work out if the inspection doesn't get passed? Whose issue is it? How does that get fixed?
I guess an answer on that would be basically the inspector who views it will make a determination on if it does pass or fail. Because for the most part, you know, we can kind of look at something, but we can't normally determine if something is mold or isn't mold. But it would have to be on, I guess, a case-by-case basis, and the inspector would then, I guess, determine who may be responsible for that based on that.
Okay, great. We have another piece of feedback here from Gavin. They say, sounds like these inspections are more extensive. How long will these inspections take for a 2-bedroom apartment?
It's a little hard to give a time frame on that, simply because we haven't begun inspecting using these standards. I don't expect that it will be as quick as how we've been doing it with the HQS, only because we're so familiar with what's passing or failing for the housing quality standards. For the NSPIRE, you know, we will probably have to refer back and forth to our guidebook as we're out there, depending on what we see. For the most part, the normal items that we'll see, we probably can go through that fairly quickly. But again, the standards, the nuances, I guess, of the standards are a little bit, so that we have to kind of take a little bit more of a look at it to see what fails and how it fails, I guess. But basically, it's new standards, so it's going to take a little bit longer in the beginning, but I can't really estimate because we haven't begun using them yet.
Okay. Thank you so much. So keep the questions coming through the chat room. Again, if anything does come up, you can always email us. I'm going to move over to the gallery once again. Tiffany, I don't know if you have a follow-up question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask the user Samsung SM A156U. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I was putting this in chat, but I think it's a very good question. I'd like to speak about the ventilation system for the bathroom. We have a ventilation system in the that provides ventilation in our kitchen and bathroom, which is provided by our building itself. I'm in a 9-story building. What if that ventilation system in the bathroom is not operable because it is under repair right now? But we're not sure if it will be ready by the inspection time. What do my landlord and I do about that?
The short answer is that if it's not working by the time that your inspection comes around, it will fail. And then it just has to be corrected. But I guess it'll have to be, you know, on a case-by-case basis. But basically, if it's not working at the time, it fails, and then it just needs to be corrected.
All right, does that answer your question, Miss? Okay, I'm gonna move on to the chat room again. We have another question. They say, would the property management be responsible for the smoke detector replacement? If so, what happens if property management does not meet deadline?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time, Dallas? I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I'm understanding it.
Yeah, absolutely. They say, would the property management be responsible for the smoke detector replacement? If so, what happens if property management does not meet deadline? So they're just asking, is property management responsible for installing all the smoke detectors before October 1st? Or is it theirs?
Typically, it's the property managers, because the smoke detector, the units have to, even outside of Section 8, that's a requirement, right? It's like a law. So I would think that the property managers would be responsible for upkeeping the smoke detectors. Now, sometimes leases mandate that the tenants change up the batteries, right? Because the managers aren't there. They don't know if the batteries are not working or not. So I would guess that the smoke detectors themselves are the manager's responsibilities, but it could be, depending on the lease, the battery upkeep is the responsibility of the client.
Got it.
Just
Sorry, just was gonna repeat what you said. Smoke detectors, property management responsibility, battery operation, the tenant's responsibility.
yeah, depending on the lease. Yeah, so that should be clarified in the lease.
Perfect. Also, following on batteries, this is a question from Amanda Hahn. If you want to send us this question as well at hpha@hawaii.gov to Amanda, because it's specific, but I want to share it with the group because I think it'll be helpful. But Amanda references the HUD.gov website on the NSPIRE standards when it comes to the smoke alarm. And Amanda says that the standards are that the unit must include at least one battery operated or hardwire smoke detector. Amanda adds, it does not say it has to be a 10-year lithium battery type. She adds, I am wondering where they are getting the information about it having to be a 10-year lithium type. So a question about what the HUD.gov website says and if there's any clarification or confusion about the lithium battery type with smoke detectors.
So I think what they did was they published it separately. It's not in the standard itself, but I think it's published within the Federal Register when they actually implemented NSPIRE. But the actual citation I can look up. If you give me a second. I'll post it in the chat.
Okay, great. And then again, Amanda, if you want to follow up with us, you definitely can by emailing us to really get into detail about your question. But we have another question in the chat room. They ask, will you be giving us and our landlords a hard copy of all the new changes before the inspections before October 1st, 2024? So they are updated as well if they are not currently in this Zoom. So I know we mentioned that the presentation we went over will be on our website at hpha.hawaii.gov sometime next week. But this person is just asking, will there be a physical copy that maybe they could go to their landlord to get?
So we can send a reminder to the landlords before they actually go into effect. I don't know if we can print out everything and provide hard copy because there's 63 standards, and each one of them could be up to, I don't know, 20 pages. It depends on which standard you're looking at, but that's a lot of paper. So we will definitely provide links to the digital version of it. And we already posted the link to the NSPIRE webpage, which has it all listed. But yeah, I don't know if we can provide hard copies because it is a lot.
Okay. So these are all great questions, everyone. Definitely add to the engagement and the preparation. I don't see any as of right now in the chat room, but if there is anyone that has a question, please don't feel hesitant to ask any type of question in regards to what we've been sharing with you all so far. So I'll give everyone a couple minutes to enter in any questions or to raise their hands in the gallery. Okay, I do see a raised question by Carrie Jeremiah in the gallery. Carrie, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yes, concerning the inspection, when the inspector's supposed to come, do you always send you a letter and they tell you who the inspector is? So that's what I want to clarify with others if they don't know about it.
Okay, great question. It's about the inspector, if they get any notice on who it is, or sort of the time frame to prepare for the inspection.
Yes, they do send you out a letter letting you know so and so the date, the time that the inspector will come, and they always have his name too. You'll have the name of the inspector that will be inspecting your unit.
Thank you. Do we have a response team?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think she's referring to annual inspections. The tenants are notified of when the inspection, well, tenants and landlords are notified of when the inspection will take place, the date, and it's always between 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then they do give the contact number and the name of the inspector for that day. So I think there was a question previously about that, but it was more directed towards a move-in inspection where we don't know who the inspector will be until maybe the couple days before the inspection actually takes place. But yes, definitely for the annual, we do send out a letter that states who the inspector will be and on the day it will take place.
Okay, thank you, John, for the confirmation, and Carrie for your question. Moving over to the chat room, this is a pretty good question in regards to infestation. They say, I understand roach infest, but what do you guys help with pigeon infestation? Many birds live on our ledge and we can't open our windows. Their feces are unbearable. There's a bird nest on each window having flies attacking us in our home, and we can't have a night's rest from all the noise they make. Please help. So the question is in regards to infestation, is there anything with the NSPIRE standards that meets with pigeon infestation?
So for the NSPIRE standards, I think that takes into account any pest. So in this instance, it would cover this as well, but this is definitely something that you can bring up to the property manager at any time because it is something that just takes place. Sounds like it's been ongoing. So definitely something you can take up with your landlord or property management. And then if, like any normal, not any normal, any usual tenant landlord type communication, this would be something you could just bring up to them and let them know that it is a problem. You don't have to wait for our inspection to have that corrected.
Definitely. Thank you so much, John, and for the person who asked that question. Okay, giving everyone another moment to ask any other questions that come to mind. Again, don't feel hesitant on the questions you might have. Can definitely help other people who might have the same question. Whether it's in the gallery, you could raise your hand or you could enter it in the chat box. Or if you want to save your question, if it's a little bit more of a specific situation, You can always call us or email us at hpha@hawaii.gov. Again, this whole presentation that we went over will be posted on our website at hpha.hawaii.gov sometime next week, so there is a point of reference to go to.
And then real quick, I'll just interject. So I posted a link. This is what HUD had published in the Federal Register, which is basically saying, so yes, you're correct. It doesn't say in the smoke alarm standard right now that the 10-year or that the sealed, detector is required. But eventually, so HUD is going to continue to update each of the standards. And I think you'll notice, like, when you click it, I think it says, like last updated on this date and stuff. So basically, HUD is going to revise standards as we go along. And then the smoke alarm detector standard is going to be revised eventually to add in the requirement that it be tamper-proof.
Okay. And that input by Nicholas was in response to Amanda Hahn's question about what is posted on the website. So sort of repeating and what Nick said, they're going to continue to update. And he also provided a link to the chat room as well. There's an input from Carl Frazier in the chat room that says it would be a good idea to have this again with just property managers or owners. Would there be any sort of meeting like this before October 1st for these last minute reminders to prepare?
We can see, yeah, if we have people available to maybe do something else as we get closer.
Okay. All right, so again, we are getting close to about an hour and a half of this presentation. All these questions were great. Thank you so much for everyone's participation and time to jump in on this NSPIRE presentation. Once again, reminding you all that this presentation that we went over will be posted sometime on our website at hpha.hawaii.gov. You can also email us with any questions or specific situations to prepare at hpha@hawaii.gov. Is there any last words that the presenters or anyone from our team would like to share or add as we wrap this up?
Nope, nothing to add. Just thank you everyone for attending. We're gonna, like Dallas said, make everything available and keep everyone updated as much as possible before the actual implementation date. So just stay tuned. Okay.
Anything from you, John Villegas, John Swift? You're good. Lyle?
No, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dallas.
Yep. Thanks, Dallas. And thanks,
All
Sean.
right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you again next time. Aloha.
Thank you.